Okay, my friends, what is going on? This is Dave Sharpe. Welcome to Wake Up Legendary. And as hundreds of you pile on here this morning to watch this live as we stream this episode, let me introduce our wonderful guest. And just let all you know that I'm really excited to give you all a different perspective. Now, Lisa is a certified life and relationship coach specializing in trauma bond recovery and abuse education, who helps clients of all genders and walks of life overcome challenges stemming from traumatic partnerships. She's published an online self-guided course, the Trauma Bond Recovery course, as well as published two workbook style journals, the Trauma Bond Recovery Journal and Rebuilding After a Trauma Bond, a self-love journal. Her expertise is geared towards getting clients to a good space in their lives and within themselves. And she'll tell us a little bit more about her personal life and how she got started, as we do every morning on the show. So with that being said, that incredibly official welcome and introduction, let me just give you a good old legendary welcome. Lisa,
Hi.
welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, you're really welcome. Where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from Toronto, Canada.
Okay. Well, we've got a few Canadians here, not only on our team, but also in our audience. So that's great. So it's so cool that we get to connect from, I always say this, but this business, this career allows us to be able to connect with both teammates and people who work with us, but also clients from around the world. So when I said career, wow, it still sounds a little weird to me when I consider what I'm doing here a career, and that I've been able to turn a kind of make a living on the internet. I've been doing it for over a decade, so I won't jinx myself and ruin it, but it's been quite an amazing journey. When I said your career, does it still tell us what comes up for you when you hear that introduction, those courses, and that curriculum that you've created, and then also thinking about this journey as a career? Did you ever think that this would happen?
Not in a million years. If someone had told me this would be my life, I would have immediately assumed they were a liar. I was in hospitality for 17 years, so that was my career, which obviously came to a bit of a halt during the pandemic. But just to think that this would be my career, both in the domestic violence realm and making a living on the internet, no, neither.
Me either. I mean, if you would have told me back when I was, back when I was first getting started, because just a bit about my story, I was a recovering addict. I had just gotten clean, still am, but had just gotten clean, in 2008, and was working construction with my dad. So to be sitting here talking with you now as a high school dropout, being considered an educator is still kind of like, you want to talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, we talk about this with our clients all the time. Everybody's got their own flavor. Before we get into some of those details, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you got into this particular line of creating information products in content marketing? How did you get into this niche?
So I think, like some, not all, but I really stumbled into it. So I was going through a separation in the pandemic, and I really just kind of wanted to document how hard it was because it had been an abusive partnership. And I just felt like a little bit alone, I guess. And I just, honestly, I was into social media. TikTok was something that I felt like I'm 39. I was 37 when this happened. And I thought TikTok is for the little kids. You have to be 20 something, not 30 something. But I thought, let's see what all the hype is about. So I opened a TikTok account to view content, not to make content.
Right.
I later decided to make content, but of course, no one's going to follow me. It's not a business. I was just talking to myself, basically. I didn't even tell my friends. I just made it and I started making content. And it was sort of within 2, 3 months, I started gaining hundreds, thousands of followers, and I was
Mm,
confused why everyone was following me. And then I started getting people asking me, can I talk to you? Can I DM you? Can I make an appointment? Do you coach? And I thought,
right.
coach? I'm not a coach. But I started looking into it and I thought, wait a minute. So, number one, you don't need a certification to be a coach. I do think you need
Mm,
expertise, experience, and education in some realm. Having said that, I do have a certification because I felt like it was something that I wanted to do.
yeah.
Um, but I started coaching, and again, I thought to myself, well, as I try to get back into my real career, hospitality, because it was still the pandemic. It feels like it lasted longer here than in some other parts of the world. But
Mm,
um, I thought I'll just make a couple $100 a month and see if I can survive, because I was surviving on what's called here employment insurance, and it pays okay, but you can't live on it. So I was
yeah.
trying to just make things work. And it just became, I was so busy with coaching, and people were asking me, how did you recover from your trauma bond? How did you recover from your abusive relationship? And
Mm,
it made me write out steps. My brain just works like that. Steps, number like 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's 12 steps. And so I wrote it down, and it became a journal, which became a course, which became another journal. And now I travel around North America to talk to people in person, and have my several platforms online, and it's just growing, and it's incredible.
yeah.
It's surreal.
Yeah, I can relate, and it's beautiful because although although we're here to serve, and that's really where the money is in, does what you're doing serve, deliver value? Does it serve people? Nobody's gonna get wealthy from just only serving themselves on social media and in the marketplace.
Mhm.
But what I think is really cool is that there is also a therapeutic element, and there is also an element of healing that happens when you begin to tell your story and find your voice. I did that within my own self and within my own journey, and I had a lot of skeletons in my closet, like some of which I shared here just a moment ago. Very easily. Did you see how they rolled off the tongue? Well, they didn't so easily back before. It was really hard to share
Mhm.
that. But I found a way to do it that's not been real and true to me, and then I've found ways that have been true to me, and those ways have been very therapeutic and healing. What do you? Not that we don't want to mix the therapeutic element with the money making element too much, because then it begins to sound kind of maybe weird to some people. But could you describe some of the personal benefits, and even if it was self-esteem boost, confidence boost, or there was some actual healing in this storytelling and teaching and serving that you've been doing, what are the personal benefits besides making money that you've got since starting this?
Well, I think you've honestly touched on most of them. It For me, well, actually, for many survivors of abuse, we feel alone. We feel like we're the only ones. We feel like maybe we're the problem. It's very difficult. So I felt like I was crazy, and to find, frankly, a community of like-minded survivors to say, like, hey, that happened to me too, which is
Mm,
partly how the account grew, because my account is relatable. Sadly, it's very relatable. So I talk about
yeah,
abuse, describe abuse, and people say me too, men and women. I've
mm,
also experienced this. I can't believe this happened to you. And it's what makes people feel validated. And that validation is the therapy. Now
mhm,
they get it as well, but I was getting that same validation. People saying me too. And I felt like I wasn't alone. And I felt, even, in terms of confidence, there's a video on YouTube that was made of me many, many years ago when I worked in hospitality, when I was petrified of being on camera.
mm,
And I was so nervous, and I always touch my hair. So the producer told me to stop.
mm,
And then my hands were right down, right by my side, and my hair was in my face. So I kept doing this when I was so nervous,
mm,
trying to get my hair out of my face without touching it. Fast forward to now, and I'm very comfortable on camera. So it built up confidence in speaking on camera. It built up my confidence in my story, and the validity and the truth to my story.
mm,
It's been such an incredible experience to have that built. and be able to both receive all of those feelings and deliver that back to the people who follow me.
I want to drill down on one specific thing that you said. You said I found a community, but isn't it true that you kind of started and created the community? And the reason why I asked that is just because a lot of our entrepreneurs in newbie or beginner marketers are also looking for something to attach themselves to and are afraid to start a group or a TikTok account or whatever, and it only be them and one or two other people. And so I wonder if you could just touch on the idea or just that point. What comes up for you when I say that? Because I'm just wondering, did you create it? Or was it something that you actually found and you then joined? Could you be more specific about that part? Because I'm trying to extract some teachable lessons also from your journey.
You are the first person to say that to me, and I think I just realized it right in this moment. So talk about processing that live. Um, I guess I did create the community. For clarity, when I say community, I actually mean this thing called narc talk. And for those people on TikTok, you would know, like, there's recovery talk and therapy talk and messy talk and whatever. So I'm on narc talk. So I found narc talk and I have contributed to that community, meaning
Mm.
when I said it, that's what I meant.
Is
But I
Narc
have
Talk
created.
like a website or is
It's
that just
not. It's literally,
okay?
it's a hashtag. It's like NARCTOK, but it works for
Okay.
anything like recovery talk with TOK,
Understood.
not talk. Would
Understood.
be a hashtag that's searchable, and then the people who are using that hashtag are all people who are in recovery. It's a way to
Understood.
find a community, by the way. But
Understood.
that said,
That's a great
I
tip, by the way.
right, it is a great tip for searching and finding your people, whoever they are,
Yeah.
in whatever
Yeah.
realm they are.
Yeah.
But that was the community that I found, and I have very much contributed to. There's lots of large creators. I've become one of them, but there's others.
Yeah.
But I did create my own Stronger Than Before community, even including my Facebook group. It's a private group, but I've created a community of people who follow me. And even further to that, I've co-founded a group called the Narc Avengers with
Mm.
my colleague, Dr. Carrie McAvoy. So she and I run this group, and we've got incredible creators who are self-aware narcissists, therapists, a psychologist, and other coaches and survivors who, we are the ones who travel around and talk to and meet people, but it's all part of this community that we have created.
You know what I am just like blown away by? First and foremost, I don't know what actually you were processing right there. Would you elaborate? Were you kind of like realizing what you've created and having a hard time taking credit for it in that moment, or was it something different?
No, it was exactly that. I just to
Okay.
say that I created it, I was like, which probably comes from being abused for so long. It's, oh, I'm nothing.
Right. Well, I
It's
mean, and I'm I certainly don't want to minimize your specific experience. What I find is that many people who are not even realizing that they have been beaten down, and whether it be by specific individuals, family, and family dynamics, or my God, society,
Mhm.
we come in with all kinds of limiting beliefs, all kinds of just parts of our personality. And this is my big kind of, if I do any coaching, it is that my job is to help our clients to go inside and find what's already there, not what somehow I'm going to give them because I'm so special and powerful and ooh, come and touch the robe of because I'm a guru, It's
Mhm.
not that. I'm a flawed guy who picks up a shirt off the floor every morning, throws it on his back and goes live, and I'm surviving and thriving in this life just like everybody else.
Mhm.
But in our community, it really is a vibe of going inside and finding what's already there. And so um I think taking credit for something as you seem to struggle with, and I do too. I get a little bit. What I find is it's for that sort of a personality, it's been really good for me to just not have the focus on me or whatever and just serve other people. It's
Mhm.
been a great outlet for me to both heal, but also to have a valuable contribution to the marketplace that I can also get paid for and build my confidence. And in turn, when I create those happy, satisfied clients and customers, they then say, wow, what you did changed my life. And there's been nothing that's helped my self-esteem over the years than having people from all over the world not say, oh, Dave, you're the best thing in the world, but say, hey, what you said there in your story and what you're sharing really matters and it's important. And that really has been a massive benefit for me throughout this process. And I wonder what it's been, what your family and friends, how have you navigated that? Because oftentimes our friends and family are the ones who can be, most critical. Have you had that experience, and how have you navigated that?
I have had a very supportive group of friends and
Good for you.
family. My friends were with me through my own abusive relationship and seeing it happen. So seeing me build something, sounds so cliche, like a phoenix from the ashes, right? Like that, the end of my abusive relationship, I felt like my life was just in absolute shambles in every possible way. So to come out of it and have built something, I have friends, and it's funny. One is striking me in particular, someone that I used to work with in hospitality, who's just constantly like, you wrote a journal. Why not make a course? Do you understand how amazing it is that you've built this? Do you even realize what you've done and how many people you've helped? And I often forget, but strangely, as much as I forget, I also see in my comment section every single day, you've helped me. You have made it so that, I've left my abusive wife, my abusive husband. You are the reason that I am stronger. You are the reason. And it shocks me, but it also is the most incredible feeling. Yes, I've made a business. Yes, I make money. And I know that there are some coaches in my niche who almost feel guilty for making money because, like, are we profiting off of domestic violence victims? But at
Right.
the same time, aren't therapists profiting? Aren't psychologists? If you're talking to someone, I mean, it's unfortunate that this all can't be free. Having said that, my content is free. So I am producing tons, hours upon hours of free content.
Yeah.
That alone helps people.
I think
But
right now, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
no, it's one of those things that I had to overcome that thought process of like the guilt of making money on it. But um, in many ways, I'm making money on my own abusive relationship. It's what I am sometimes talking about. Not all of my content is based in my story, but it is based in the stories of the people that I talk to.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing to see another entrepreneur kind of navigate mentally some of this stuff, because we all have our own mental gymnastics we do about kind of, taking feedback or criticism, and then kind of like justifying what we're doing and all this. And at the end of the day, it's like, you know, um, there is absolutely a way that you could talk yourself out of, beat yourself up, and find all the reasons and ways this isn't going to work out or why it's not a good idea. But I mean, the world can also do that for you if you ask them. It's your job to find the glasses that are half empty or to create that. And I think that's what's inspirational about seeing somebody who's been through anything talk about it and talk about that them overcoming it and how they did it. um, there's we've been paying for that and seeking that and bartering for that and sitting around in circles and listening to tribe leaders describe and teach us that for so long. And it just so happens that, yeah, we live in a society to where there's a little paper. It's not a bad system. I mean, as many people say, capitalism is the worst system in the world, but it's just better than all the other bad systems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, we, isn't it such an interesting thing that those of us, and it's a thing to be grateful for, that we're living in the times that we are. Who would have thunk? And I want to get into the specifics of some of the things that you've done on your kind of TikTok account and how you got things started. But I wake up every morning grateful that I live in this time to where these tools, and although they can be dangerous, the internet, kids getting on it, even things that adults see, there's a lot of things that are dangerous. However, On the flip side of that, we live in a time right now to where we can literally take a struggle and turn it into a strength, or take a mess and turn it into a message
Mhm.
within a period of months or even years, very quickly, get it up and begin to share it and start impacting people and making a living from it. So talk us through those early days of when you created your TikTok account and went to post your first video.
So I remember my first video was a joke about it was a trend. So I wasn't talking, and that was kind of even the point. Is I thought if I'm going to make content, it's going to be to trending sounds, and I'm never going to speak because the thought of speaking on camera just makes me like. Ugh. So I made a video making a joke about giving my ex back to his mother, like a refund sort of joke or a Christmas present, like me giving her back as a Christmas present. And that's kind of what started the account, not the business.
Yeah.
And I had made my screen name Stronger Than Before. That was around January. In March, April, that was when people started asking me to talk to them, to coach. And that's when I started thinking like, man, I need a business name. And I spent weeks thinking about a business name when it was my father who said, you know, you have a business name, right? It's Stronger Than Before. And I was like,
Oh, Dad,
yeah, I
is that a
overthought.
real thing, or are you really incorporated it, or did he just say that to you?
He said it to me, and then I made it an actual business name. Yes.
Oh, that's
Um,
really sweet, man.
yeah. My dad is he's a marketing guy, he's a sales guy. So he thought the name was perfect. He's like, I don't know what you're thinking about. It's right there.
I'm
So
having a
yeah.
moment. I'm having a moment here. I'm a dad right in the mix of fatherhood
Yeah.
right now, and that's a very sweet thing.
Yeah. He kind of just connected that such a simple dot, right? But
Yeah,
it's
wow.
born of that. Um, and so I made it a business, and then I went and got a certification, and I was coaching people, but more than anything, I was like, how do you build a business? Like you can just poof, I'm a coach, but what's next, and how does this grow, and how does this become something that's a well thought out process? Because
Mm,
there's this stigma around coaches where it's just people who like slap coach on their name and then they just start talking, but what's their qualifications?
yeah,
And I urge anyone to check and look at what the certification actually is and what experience they have. But I joke, yes, I have a certification, but I was also in an abusive relationship for 10 years. And to me, that's my education. Is I lived it. And then I formed this god awful trauma bond and I broke it. So it's more
mm,
born of this is how I did it. And I have worked with psychologists and therapists, looking at the process that I use to ensure that it's safe and beneficial to people, but it's working.
it's very
Um,
responsible of you, by the way.
it felt important to me because this is such a serious thing, and people, yes, dealing with the emotions, but many of my clients are in abusive relationships. So there's an
Sure.
aspect of safety planning that actually has to go in, not just the emotional stuff, but people say just leave. It's
And I
not.
think that people actually feel more comfortable sometimes talking to somebody or reaching out to somebody on social media than they do picking up the phone to make an appointment and to walk into a therapist office.
Yeah. I think also it's interesting with therapists, and I'm a 100% pro licensed therapy,
Sure.
despite not
Me
being
too.
one myself. I am pro that. However, they are not trained as a whole. Some are out of personal experience, but they are not trained in abuse, and they are certainly not trained in narcissistic abuse. And it can be very invalidating to go to therapy and have a therapist tell you that you're overreacting to certain things, because this type of abuse is very covert, very insidious,
Mhm.
and so it can be invalidating. So what I have found is that people say things like, "Oh, you're better than a therapist." It's not, it isn't better. It's different.
Yeah.
There's a camaraderie between us as two
Exactly, and I
survivors
know
talking.
exactly what you're talking about by being in recovery myself.
Mhm.
I've got a core group of people, and each one has their own individual role, and it's really important to have as much support, and especially when you're going through something like that. But I think that it's important to have that no matter what you're going through. I mean, even if you're building a business, we try to create a really safe, shame-free environment here where people can grow and fail. And I purposefully try to expose my failures and idiosyncrasies in front of people so everybody can feel more comfortable and not have to feel like they have to. Because we do have a lot of imposter syndrome when we come on, and you've outlined a lot of it. But I love how you're, I can tell that you're passionate about what you do, and I can tell that you're, yeah, it's amazing when we get involved and completely immerse ourselves in something. You know, we're very opinionated about certain things, and it only comes from time doing it. You form your opinions, you form your passions, you form what you're really about and the things that you're not so much about. And
Mhm.
I'm assuming that you're a lot more clear now than you were when you first got started creating content. Is that right? Clear about your message, clear about what you stand for, clear about what you do and how you can help, and just have overall clarity. Am I right about that?
Yes, absolutely. When I first started, in all honesty, it was sort of like abuse recovery. And now I've sort of or not what I call, but what people call niching down. And I specifically talk about the trauma bond that is formed in an abusive relationship, because there's a million different aspects. But I've found that my following grew as I actually really focused on just one topic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big topic within that, but
It was
I
something that must have been very relatable to a lot of people.
sadly, yes, it
Yeah.
is. There's, millions of people going through it, or that have gone through it at least, and that's what made it. I think too. I mean, I was also nervous. I didn't when I first started. I didn't know how TikTok even worked. I mean, even hitting like stop and then continuing to record and making clips and putting them together. I would
Right.
just hit record and it's a 60-second clip and that's it. Like if you make a mistake, hey, start over or accept that your video has a mistake. And even I thought using text boxes like that all, I'm not a complete idiot when it comes to social media, but TikTok was just so new.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how easy it actually can be if you
Mhm.
just learn a few things. So I, in my spare time, which I really didn't have with two little kids and going through what I was going through and starting a business, but I used every spare minute to read books on abuse, read books on healing, read about and watch videos on making content and becoming a TikTok creator, how to make TikTok videos, what's catchy, what's a hook, and what does that look like? How do you structure your content? So that was the I guess the logistics of it. But then I still had
Mhm.
to make sure that my actual content, my delivery, me as a person speaking, was relatable, approachable, broad enough, but still specific. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of a fun little dance that you do.
Yeah.
And it was
And that's what I was just alluding to, was you're talking, it's important to talk about something that the majority of people can relate to, and that isn't like jargon. They don't have to understand the jargon in
Mhm,
order to, because on TikTok especially, and how these reels are pumping all your content out to people who are not following you,
mhm,
they don't know you. They may have never heard any of the, like, when I mean jargon, I mean like in well, we talk about hooks in marketing, we talk about, funnels, and we talk about, email autoresponder. The average person doesn't know what that is, and so if that's all the stuff you're talking about, and they're just going to get overwhelmed and keep scrolling. It's the majority of people, and this is what I found, and you let me know, Lisa, how this shows up in your niche. But the majority of people that I have discovered are open to listening and then eventually enrolling in something and taking part in spending their money are people who are in the very beginning stage of something. They're
mhm,
looking into it, they're thinking about it, they've been thinking about it, and in our case they've been wanting to start a business, or they've tried some other things, but they're kind of in that beginning. They consider themselves a kind of new person or a beginner, and that's where I find the broadest market is. So if you're talking about stuff that, is really complicated and advanced, it's not going to be relatable. It's not going to be
mhm,
approachable. But if you talk about things that beginners, newbies, people who are still in their pain, or maybe in some cases do not even fully understand what their pain is, meaning that they're not able to articulate it and put words to it. And when they come across a video of somebody who actually is saying what they're experiencing that they've maybe not been able to put words to,
Mhm.
It's like a bond. That is a bond between content creator and content consumer that begins to form. And
Mhm.
it's only when you lay things out simple enough, elementary enough, and relatable enough that the masses, the beginner, can relate and understand it. And so what is true for your niche? Is it that the majority of content you're creating that's getting engaged are those kind of beginner style content pieces? Like, are you in this kind of relationship? What would you say gets the most response?
Those videos for me did well when I first started because I think it was probably more relatable because I was in that same realm of, I'm new to this. That said, I do actually a mix of videos that are, like, are you experiencing this? Are you feeling this way? And I explain something. And then I say, if you are, this is a trauma bond, or you might be in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
But I also do a lot of skits where I play both roles
Okay.
and
Okay.
I show a behavior, a scenario, and I say, like,
Wow.
this is something that a narcissist would do. The
That's
one thing I
powerful.
always find funny is that when you see a skit, people might say often, um, that's not a narcissist, that's just like a cheater. It doesn't mean that if you see this skit that and it fits your realm that your partner is a narcissist. It just means that a narcissist would also do it. So
Yeah.
there's a bit of a weird assumption that some people make, but the
But that
content
creates engagement down in the comments,
does.
doesn't it? In
It
discussion.
does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And as creators, we can't put a disclaimer on every video of like, don't go off on a tangent and assume this. But it's even, if I make content about a
But if
male
you do, don't
perpetrator,
worry because it'll only help my engagement.
right? Like, feel free to pop off in the comments, go for it. If I make videos about a male perpetrator and a female victim, men will often, not all men, but men will often say, like, oh, women do it too. It doesn't need to be said because I know women do it too. And I make a lot of content when there's a female perpetrator and a male victim. Not that I owe anyone any specific type of content, but I do make content like that to show both sides. But all of whatever kind of content I produce, it's controversial because I talk about heavy topics like sexual coercion and abuse, domestic violence, and there's gendered issues in there that
Yeah.
people I think wish weren't that didn't exist, but they do. But it all creates that engagement. And
The
I try to
world
produce
is
content with questions. The
yeah.
content, whether I'm speaking or it's a text box, but like, can you relate? It
Yeah.
prompts the comment, which creates engagement, which pushes it out to the For You pages or the home pages more.
Do you think that a person in a different niche could borrow the idea of your skits and apply it to their topics?
Absolutely.
Mm.
I'm actually working with someone in recovery making content and being able to kind of see my content and look at the skits and do some like the demons that kind of talk to alcoholics,
Yeah.
demon and the
Yeah.
addict.
Well, or I mean, gosh, that talk to an entrepreneur. I mean, could you imagine yourself just for a moment, Lisa, that you were creating content for entrepreneurs and online marketers? You were teaching them what you do. Couldn't you see a lot of the same things popping up, a lot of the same limiting beliefs, a lot of the same negative self-talk, you know? And
Absolutely.
so I think the thing that we forget oftentimes when we come into this kind of content creation and now all of a sudden we're like talking to people and kind of we're not interfacing with them, at least not yet, but we're like we can see our face. We're interfacing with ourselves on the phone, and it's intimidating. What do I talk about? Can I relate? But I think the thing that's common is that human beings have the same feelings no matter what they're doing. They have fear. They have I mean, here you're doing something that's totally kind of a niche in coming in through a different door. Like you came into this world like through a different place other than legendary, but you're describing a lot of the same things that our clients describe every morning here live on the show. And I
Mhm.
know because I've interviewed over 550 of them live on the show. And so it's amazing that we all have very similar feelings like although the situation is different, the experience can be the same. And so that's why I asked about the if the skits would if you could kind of, just drop them in different niches because I remember when I first got started, a lot of the angles or a lot of the kind of ways in which I would present headlines. Like I remember I was looking at um, this one headline in the dating niche, and it was like three weird questions that will get you a phone number or something like that, because there's great copywriters in that niche.
Mhm.
And because guys are dumb and we get sucked into those those stupid, like we're gonna all of a sudden become Prince Charming because we read a sales letter basically. But I remember taking the ideas from that and transplanting them over in the online marketing niche, and they worked beautifully. They worked perfectly. I just replaced the words or the topic. So I think my point here is where are some of the places that you have looked for inspiration? So, and how have you made sure that you don't sound the exact same that every other person inside of your niche sounds? Where have you drawn maybe some inspiration to kind of find your own unique message or whatever? Because I'm asking this because a lot of our entrepreneurs get in and they see other people in the identical niche and they just kind of do exactly what they're doing. And although that might get you off the ground, it's not sustainable because eventually you have to kind of build or create something that's a little bit different. And that's what makes your business unique, is that it feels or sounds different. So how have you avoided looking like everybody else, or has it been a non-issue? And where have
Truly.
you found your inspiration from?
So, so I try to make my content authentic, meaning it's me. I'm very focused. It sounds so selfish, but I'm focused on who I am, and I want to make sure that my content is really me talking, and I understand the message that I'm trying to put out there. I obviously watch a lot of content, and I find that a lot of narcissistic abuse or abuse in general content is just did you know, and it's like facts, 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 or some were doing skits, and it was actually another creator friend of mine that said you should do skits. That's how I've done pretty well, and good
Yeah.
on her, because as soon as I started doing skits, I did my skits differently than she was doing. The angles, the
Mm,
cameras, the topics, they're a little bit different.
yeah.
But it really just is a matter of like, she is her and I am me, and it just comes
Right.
across differently. But even in the way that I use my text boxes, I follow a lot of creators. Don't ask me to name them because I can't remember any names, but I follow a lot of creators that talk about how to grow on TikTok and how to make a hook and how to structure a video. If you're
Yeah.
not looking at that stuff and you're winging it, you may not grow. You may and just be
Yeah.
lucky. But
Yeah.
I'm about kind of doing that work and figuring out what makes sense. But I do get
Totally.
inspired by other people's videos, and we all do. I mean, I have got this Narc Avengers group I told you about. We all
Yeah.
watch each other's content, and I might see, another creator make a topic on a specific thing, and then I think, "Ooh, I have an opinion on that, so I'm going to make my own video, same
Totally.
topic." But we
Totally.
cover it in such a different way that we are all, most of us are coaches in this field, so you'd think we're competition, but we're friends.
Yeah, you're collaborating. You're
Mhm.
collaborating versus competing, and that's what a lot of our people do in our community as well. They're all a lot of them are in various niches, but many of them start out sort of in the online marketing niche or kind of the make money online niche. Kind of they're um, collaborating at the beginning, trying to come up with different ideas of okay, um, how do I uh, how do I present that first video? How do I and the challenge that we have here at Legendary is mostly just getting people to go through the curriculum because they're and actually get trained, because they're so excited. They see people on the show every morning who a month or two in. I mean, Lisa, when I started 10 years ago, I mean, it was different. I'm not gonna give you the old walked both hills up, walk both ways uphill in bare feet to school every morning story, but it was just different. We weren't going viral. We were grinding on YouTube. We were we were article spinning and posting blogs and I mean, trying to, black hat SEO and all this crap, Google or Facebook ads. Everybody had just got kicked off Google because they did a huge, I mean, it's just nowadays the opportunity to like go viral it's really exciting. I mean, our biggest challenge is like holding people back and saying, like, don't expect to go viral on your first video. Don't have this massive expectation. So if it doesn't happen, you're disappointed. Take the time to go through the training that you purchased that's here, that lays it all out. And that can be a real push and pull. And I understand it. I want to just get right in there too. But a lot of our entrepreneurs go out, they fail forward, they come back, they go, and that's how this process is. We go through the training, we get excited, we go out there, we make a mistake, we come back, with kind of our head tucked, we're like, okay, all right, I'm ready to sit down and actually learn. Or we get distracted off into a shiny object, and a lot of that comes from the lack, I think, of belief in ourselves, of thinking that what we're creating is actually going to turn into something. So as we bring this in for a landing, what are some of the distractions that have popped up for you? Is there been any shiny objects that you've had to avoid, whether it be externally or has it been anything else that you've had to apply some good old perseverance to, or some focus or some discipline? And I'm asking this because a lot of our entrepreneurs have recently transitioned from or are still employees. And I believe there's a different approach to entrepreneurship than there is to being an employee. So how have you navigated that, or what have been the shiny objects or distractions that you've had to learn how to be an entrepreneur or learn how entrepreneurship was different than being an employee?
Well, I mean, clearly the biggest difference is the paycheck, right? Like just that feeling of you have to hustle, you have to grind and continue to work hard when you're an entrepreneur, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to, pay your mortgage next month. So I have not found myself too distracted because I used to be in sales and marketing and in events. And that is like a very disciplined kind of the event side of things. You have to be very focused. So I was able to really sit down every day, make a list. What am I doing today? What do I hope to accomplish today? I would get distracted by wanting to do too many things. I think the biggest distraction that a lot of people make is I want to have journals, webinars, a YouTube, a this, I want to have a podcast, I want to have a show,
Oh, yeah.
I want to do this, I want to be like that person and that person and that person. Calm down. So there have been one or two times, I would probably say two times in the last year where I've been like, okay, hold on. I think I'm doing too much, because I'm starting to realize that I can't keep up.
Yeah.
And, on one hand, is your business at a level where you're growing and you need to add people? And I did. But more than that, I personally have to be the person who's doing certain things. You can't do everything.
Yeah.
You're the content creator. So I have to make the videos. I have to make the ideas and the content and the written work and the webinars that I host, but I can't do 20 million things. So I keep lists of content ideas, and then I have recording days, and I've structured my week. It is about, taking on things and not saying no to something because you're afraid. Say no to something if it's too much and you literally can't fit it on your plate, but have that confidence of like, I can do this. I can do this, and take some risks, but stay organized. Taking on too much is a big mistake that a lot of people make.
Great stuff. Something just came up for me that I wanted to ask you before I let you go, and it revolves around boundaries and setting boundaries as an entrepreneur. Now, I'm sure you could do a masterclass on setting boundaries in relationships, and quite frankly, I guess it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's somewhat. I don't want to be, obviously we could pick that apart. Romantic and personal relationships are not the same as business relationships with teammates or clients, but the setting boundaries piece is very similar. And that when I was new, quite frankly, I didn't really learn about setting boundaries until many years into entrepreneurship. And so it almost costed me my marriage many times because I overcommitted myself, traveled a lot, got, um, just didn't set boundaries, couldn't say no, didn't have my priorities in order. You know what I mean? So I'm like prioritizing all these other people who honestly don't give a shit about me over only if I can make money for them or if there's something that's money related. When, my family's at home and they only want my time, they'll live in a cardboard box with me. So setting boundaries, learning to set boundaries with my time, with other people, etc., has been an amazing journey of finding so much relief. I wonder if you could just talk about boundaries in your business and how can somebody who's a brand new entrepreneur, what might you think that they could focus on in terms of setting boundaries? Like, what do you think are the most kind of um, what are the most insidious ways that entrepreneurs' time, we either give it away, and that's really what we're doing. We give it away through not setting boundaries. What do you think are some of the most insidious ways that entrepreneurs lose tons of their productivity because of a lack of ability to be able to set boundaries or even knowing what they are?
I mean, it's a couple things. And I like that, when you kind of compare to relationships, it is the same, meaning the concept of what I teach people in the relationship side of things is what are your core values and what really matters to you, and then use that as the jumping point to set and create what the boundaries are going to be in a relationship. It's exactly the same in business. What really matters? What are you trying to accomplish today? What are you trying to accomplish with your business? Does the thing that you're being asked to do serve you? And something I see a lot of, it sounds so ridiculous, but like responding to DMs. I still get messages, can I send you a DM? And they're asking because they can't, because my DMs are off on TikTok. Why are they off? Because there isn't a possibility that I could ever keep up with that amount of DMs. And I couldn't give that type of time and answer hundreds of questions a day when it got to that point. I was trying to answer, but the reality is I'm giving away free advice and I'm taking time. And then by the end of the day, did I make the content that I was supposed to make? Did I make the website updates that I was supposed to make? Or am I sitting here responding to individual DMs? So I'm not saying ignore your followers because that's rude.
Wow.
But it's like book a meeting with me, and I realize that sounds like pay me for the advice, but that's what I'm doing. I am selling my advice. I'm giving you all this free content, and yet you still want more.
I'm healing. Here's what I'm doing. I'm healing, and I'm also helping those who want guidance at a fee because I have to make a living. It's so odd that people, I'm sure you get that all the time, which is why you've commented on a couple of times, are wondering why you're maybe charging for your services. But that is besides the point. You have brought up something that I couldn't imagine that would have ever said on this episode that I just didn't expect from you, which is the fact that you've given the strongest example of setting boundaries that I've ever heard an online marketer give. And I'd like you to continue with the thought. You turned off your DMs because it was a distraction. And I'm sure that some people were. It is very hard to set boundaries in DMs. I mean, it is a boundaryless place. So you're saying that you turned off DMs in order to be more focused on the ways in which both you're serving the greater audience as well as monetizing your time and knowledge.
Yes.
That's wow.
It was taking too much time. It sounds so simple, but honestly, I'll admit I still have my DMs on Instagram because it's smaller, but on TikTok, I'm not kidding you, it was hundreds a day. I've had people yell at me in the comments, all caps, exclamation points, because my advice wasn't thorough enough. But like a little bit, how dare you expect thorough, detailed advice when we're not, this isn't a client coach relationship. You are a stranger on the internet. So I don't owe you anything for free. Having said that, I have made countless hours of free content. Please
you got a
feel free
hat
to
slam
watch
there, and that's what we do here on. You just got a hat slam because that you girl, you just set the room on fire.
I'm all about that. I don't have time. I would love to have time for that, but I don't.
I am just astonished right now because I would have never imagined that you would have given that strong of an example, but it may be the biggest power move I've ever heard from an online marketer who is like basically walking your talk. I mean, it's like, it's such a great example of a person who says, not only am I focused on bigger shit here, and if you want my time, I know my worth and I know I'm going to deliver, so go pay for it. And I'm not going to put up with your abusive, boundaryless bullshit in my DMs anyways. So if you want to say something to me, say it out publicly on my comments, where you probably won't say half the stuff that you would have said to me personally or privately in my DMs, right?
Yep.
Power move.
I'm very protective of my time. I was worried about boundaries because, again, being in an abusive relationship, I didn't have any. But since that relationship, I have been able to test my boundary skills, both personally and professionally. And I'm happy with where they're at. And that's all that matters, is what I think of them. So I'm good.
And that's what
Two
I think
hats.
is
Nice.
so important for us all to like get to this place to where, and this has taken me a long time to get here. Like I'm just getting here now. And I think a lot of it is unwinding and working on relationships myself. I'm relating to a lot of your stuff and your work without going into my personal details in spending time and making the show about me. But it's like when you really do find what you like. And I had a therapist one time who told my wife and I that her name was Renee, boundaries are simply letting other people know who you are.
Mhm.
And that, like, it took me a decade to understand what she meant by that, but really saying what you mean and meaning what you say without being mean when you say it. And it's it's so freeing. And I think we all, me included, I'm not saying I have it and you all deserve it, I'm saying like we all deserve to feel that level of comfort in our own skin and that level of freedom and free choice and not being pressured by the all these other people, because that is what happens. And one of the things that sometimes we're unprepared for when we start to create content and on TikTok is the fact that you have now put yourself and kind of open the doors for everybody's toxicity to just come pouring in, all their bullshit to come pouring into your comments and DMs. And it's
Mhm.
really, really an act of self love and likely an act of building your future success to basically cut out about 90% of it. Now, if you can ignore it, good for you. But what you're saying is you're like me and you have to have physical boundaries or walls or in. I'm inspired right now, actually. I just have to tell you the
You're
fact
going to
that
go
you
close off
did
your DM.
that. I'm turning off every damn DM in the world, and get rid of my phone too. I've been dying to get rid of this thing. The idea that anybody besides my wife and kids can get a hold of me at any time is scary. But um where can we leave this conversation this morning that would feel right? What else could you share with our audience that you feel that maybe you haven't shared, or something else that may be of value to them before we wrap up?
I think, you kind of said something earlier about these self-limiting beliefs that we all have. And these beliefs keep people in abusive relationships, but these self-limiting beliefs also make people think, I can't be a coach. I can't make a business. Listen, I'm an addict. I can't be an online marketer. I can't teach anything. Yes, you can. It's the belief. And so unpack, where does that belief come from that you're not good enough? Where dig
Mm,
deep, and it's usually the childhood, but where does that come from? And how can you unlearn that you can't do it, that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough, and that no one would care? Unlearn that and just decide you are worthy, you can do it, and just do it. Where do I
mm,
start? You can find a million places, but the point is start. You can
yeah,
just open a TikTok, start there, make a YouTube channel and have no videos and but make the account.
yep. Mic drop. Boom. It's on the ground. It's been wonderful to visit with you and hear about your journey. I mean, it's really been quite, when you dig in to somebody's story and what they've been through. It's so much more inspirational than just hearing the 15-second or clips. That when you hear the story behind it, it makes you realize, oh, wait, it wasn't just a magical placement that she got placed on this pedestal. Somebody just came around and blessed her or something. No, there's this whole long story to where you first and foremost trudge through all the pain that you had to go through in order to have the wonderful wisdom that you have now. And that's why I've been saying for years, hey, I simply have the success that I have only because I was able to turn my struggles into my strengths, meaning that I use the story and the skeletons in the closet and the experiences that I got. And I really did learn some valuable lessons from some really shitty situations. But I was able to turn the struggles into my strengths. In my mess, this mess of a life, felon at 18, teenage father, all the, drug addict, homeless, into a message that, gee whiz, I don't know how to, read an encyclopedia and comprehend half of it because my ADD is so bad, but damn it, I can learn online marketing and then tell my story, and I can create content about what I've been through. And the same thing that we're doing now with TikTok and all these short form, we've been doing it for 10 or 12 years. I have, and it's only going to get better. There's only going to be more opportunity for us to both heal ourselves and build our confidence, but also to monetize that wisdom, those struggles, and that mess. And it's just, this is one of the best examples I've ever seen of it happening. So you should be amazingly proud of yourself. And if nobody's told you today that you're a rock star, you're a rock star. So come back and maybe, please, if you're not too busy, come back and maybe do a second episode with us in the future.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I'd love to.
All right, Lisa. We'll talk to you later. Have a great day. All right.
Thanks so much. All right.
Bye. All right. See you. All right, my friends. She's at _stronger _than _before _. Okay. So there's an underscore in between those letters and at the beginning and the end. Stronger than, THAN, than before. And remember, her father looked at her and gave her that name. That was a cool part of her story. Look, my friends, as Lisa said, I'm not so greedy that I have to make $1 from every single person that starts a business on the internet, because you have to learn it here from me and at Legendary. As Lisa said, I don't care where you start, quite frankly. Just start somewhere. This is a wonderful place for you to start. This is a wonderful community that you can be a part of to then go create your own community, as we talked about. But if you don't get started here, get started somewhere and do it today, because the upside, the opportunity, it only gets bigger the sooner you start. It gets smaller. The opportunity gets smaller the longer that you wait. Thanks again, Lisa, for the wonderful, wonderful content on the show this morning. And we'll see you all back here tomorrow for another episode. Get out of here. Be legendary. Take care. And thanks again, Lisa. Peace.